Welcome back to the sideboard here at Magic Spotlight Dragons, part of SEG Con Denver. I'm Nick Miller alongside Magic Hall of Famer Reid Duke. Glad to have you here. First large limited opening event in a long time. We're glad to have you as a featured player. I watched you build your sealed deck. Take us through your initial thoughts when you opened it up.
All right. Well, for starters, like you said, I'm super happy to be here. There's nothing better than just playing a big limited tournament. So let's keep that in perspective. The sealed deck building portion was a little disappointing for me. So the first thing that jumped off the page is, of all the awesome mythic dragons and crazy stuff you could open, I didn't really get any of that. I think you could make a strong argument that the most powerful card in my whole sealed pool is a land, the Quarry Mountain Monastery. So definitely not what I was, dreaming of when I was going to sleep last night. The second thing is, I think in this format, a lot of the best sealed pools are going to be the ones that have the best mana fixing. That was missing for me. So I felt like I really was going to have a hard time building even a 3-color deck, let alone a 4 or 5 color one.
Yeah, and you had 2 Windscarred Crags and a Tranquil Cove were your only lands that tap for multi-color
Yeah, exactly.
mana.
So I'm looking at I got some nice, sort of Abzan cards, 0 mana fixing to make that possible. So what I chose to do was lean as far as I could in the other direction and build the deck that had the very best mana base that I could get my hands on. So I ended up going with a 2-color Boros deck, no splash, no 3-color Mardu card, no 3-color Jeskai card, and I do have 2 Windscarred Crags. So I think, I might have a good claim to having the best mana base of anyone in the sealed deck portion, even though a lot of the other strengths are missing.
Right, and as I watch you break it all down, sorting everything, looking at your playables, you immediately noted the mana fixing and the red power level of the deck. Then you were kind of toying with other things. You laid out the red-white deck first, thought, this was strong, or the best you could probably do, but you also had a red-green build that was interesting, and Gruul, not a color supported archetype in this format, but take us through why you didn't go that route.
Sure, so exactly right. I felt pretty good about red because I have 3 red burn spells, so my best removal is in red. And I thought if I don't go Boros, I'll probably build a 3-color Teamer. I was laying it out. We already talked about the issue with my mana fixing's not great. My blue cards weren't really stellar, so I was like, oh, maybe it's either Boros aggro or kind of a Gruul aggro with 1 or 2 3-color Teamer cards. And that looked good too. I do have a couple nice green ones. The Surok, the 4/3 rare creature is one of the stronger cards that I have access to. So red-green even looked a little stronger in terms of the average card quality or the quality of my 22nd, 23rd card. But, upon reflecting, I just decided I thought the Boros was gonna play out better. It's more easy. A lot of this stuff is about vision sort of, and I can envision the Boros deck working, whereas I think the Gruul deck is just going to wind up getting outclassed and, a ground creature stall where I'm just waiting for my opponent to play their rare and I'll wind up, not having a good experience with that one.
Yeah, another thing you mentioned was, how am I going to win the games? And while the green creatures were slightly bigger, you didn't really have the evasion. And this deck looks to be possible to go under some opponents that are kind of doing the 3 and 4 color thing.
Right. So really leaning into evasion with 2 copies of Starry-Eyed Skyrider, which I have some hard-hitting ground creatures that I can jump into the air with that one. 2 copies of Runescale Stormbrood. So I'm kind of hoping to just build out a board, have one of these powerful flying creatures go unanswered, and then give my opponent a hard time, even if they do have really high card quality or they've got some bombs.
And we have some other interesting cards, and generally in sealed you don't see a lot of 3-mana 4/2s being played, but we have 2 of the Rescue Leopards, and you have Wild Ride in here as a way that really shows what you're trying to do. You're trying to just get a ton of damage in unexpectedly and take out the games that way.
Yeah, so I have not played with the card Wild Ride before, and that was on my list of okay, this is one of the cards that I can pretty much ignore for the weekend. It's just never going to make any of the decks that I'm trying to build. But, again, you have to be flexible with what you're given and sort of have a vision for how things are going to work out. So I decided to play Wild Ride as my 23rd card with the logic of like, let's steal games against stronger decks. So if I can unexpectedly play Starry-Eyed Skyrider, Wild Ride it, attack, jump my Rescue Leopard, now you're taking 8 damage in the air that you weren't counting on. Similarly, 2 copies of Runescale Stormbrood with 5 mana, play the dragon, Wild Ride, trigger its prowess ability. That's 7 damage right out of nowhere with 2 cards. So again, just looking for some kind of like hard-hitting combinations that maybe my opponents won't, be prepared for at the right time.
War Effort, another card standing out here as a way to just give your creatures a little more punching power here.
Yeah, I'm hoping War Effort will be one of the better cards in my deck, and I think Boros leverages it better than the Gruul deck would have. So I'm hoping really strong with Starry-Eyed Skyrider. I've got a couple of mobilized creatures. If I can just go wide and make a big attack where, all my creatures are getting this permanent bonus, I think War Effort might be nice in some of these games.
All right, well, you weren't dazzled by your sealed pool. What would you give it a rating of if you had to?
All right, so once again, what I like is really good mana. I like that I'm going to finish games in time, which especially, it's worth mentioning there's a 6-2 record for cut to day 2, which is pretty stiff. If you get a draw, it's really hard to achieve that record. At least the Boros deck, I'm going to get my games done. So those are 2 qualities, but all told, I would definitely consider this a below average deck. So probably something in like the, 4 out of 10 deck range, where it's not a disaster, at least has some things going for it, but I would certainly, take a new pool if given that option.
All right, lastly, what are your expectations going into round 1 here?
Well,
we would love to watch you draft tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, look, this is not, I didn't come here to play like a crummy Boros aggro deck. So now the task becomes, let's scrap it out and then get to draft my fun, 5-color bombs deck tomorrow. So my expectations are, I know there's going to be some frustrating games where like my opponents just play rares and I get outclassed, and that's going to feel crummy, but I'm going to be looking for every opportunity. If I can get enough of those, if I can capitalize on my opponents stumbling or having greedy mana bases, then maybe I can get to those 6 wins. And that's what I'm hoping for, especially if I can get 1 or 2 wins early in the day.
Anyone that's watched you play knows you're going to fight it out. You're going to be there until the last card, until the last life point. We're going to hope to see you pull out some of those crazy wins. Reid, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to Star City Games all weekend long for the action here in Denver.